Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. Brian was just asking me, what is our toasting beverage tonight? And Brian, this is bringing back my San Francisco days. Nobody drinks more Fernet than San Franciscans. We are number one per capita in books, booze, and fine dining. I joke we're the most educated drunks in the country. And, that is a serious drink. We're here every Tuesday. We have our always very special guest with us tonight, the Test Geek himself, Brian Lee, managing member of Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. Tell us where you're joining us from, what series exam you're taking. We'll take care of some housekeeping, and then we'll get on to help you with any content we can be helpful on. If you do have a question for Brian or myself, please put it in the question format. Tell us what exam you're taking, SIE, Series 7, S7, with a capital Q. That helps us pick it out of the chat. Also helps us know at what depth to answer it. Because, the answer that would be workable on the SIE is different than what it would be on a 7. So just, it's helpful. It's not necessary, but it's helpful. If you were looking for a free supplement to your paid study materials, nothing better than my YouTube channel. We're going to just crossed 8 million views. We have 60,000 real subscribers. I have a competitor so vain he's bought tens of thousands of fake subscribers. All my subscribers are real, all my views are real, and all my videos are original. I'm not a copycat. He also tends to copy a lot of my content. That doesn't matter. The originals are always the best. Ask Brian. Brian has a copycat in his life too. Anyways, I get this all the time. How's the channel organized? I just got somebody today, Dean, what videos should I watch? It's a self-service video thing, right? Servers, 2,000 videos. They're in suggested watch order and playlist. So find the SIE, find your playlist, or 66, for example. And the first playlist is a podcast series that Brian and I did. Gives you a nice overview of the test. The second playlist, and again, suggested watch order, are the lectures. The third playlist is practice tests and practice exams. I forget what the fourth play is. There's a fourth, right? So listen, please use the channel search bar. It's okay. Brian and I are going to get asked and answer questions we've asked and answered before. They live forever in video format. All you have to do is go to the channel search bar, put in accrued interest or margin or accretion or whatever it is. That don't be watching 2,000 videos. Go there. I had somebody today. They said tax-free, tax equivalent yields. I go put it in the channel search bar. There'll be 8 videos come up with me helping a student with it, tutoring replay, or me going over some questions somebody's asked previously. So use that channel search bar, please. I'm trying to be nice, Brian, but I'm getting more aggressive about use the channel search bar.
You're a grumpy old man.
I am. I just had my 63rd birthday.
I know.
You remember? Now, Giggs wasn't around at Kaplan when you were around, right?
Yes, she was.
Oh, she was. So Giggs, I don't know. Maybe she's just nicer to me because I'm getting older. I don't know. But she said, "Oh, Dean, I'm sorry I missed your birthday." I said, "Well, no problem. I wasn't expecting a birthday card from Giggs." And she said, "Well, how was it?" I thought, "Well, she's pretty chatty." I said, "Well, as I enter my 64th year on planet Earth, I had one of my best birthdays ever." Wow. Which is true. It was a really great one. All right. As I said, it's buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. No problem. If you're looking for paid supplements, not a time to be frugal. Now, Brian and I understand if you're taking an SIE, for example, maybe you don't have the resources. And maybe you're going to be forced or compelled because of lack of resource to use free information. I have lots of free content for you. But if you do have the resources, and boy, this is really aggravating to me, Brian, particularly on the higher end where somebody is taking a 24 or 9 or 10 and they're too cheap to buy the study materials. I'm like, really? Won't your firm pick that up for you? Or can't you pay for that out of pocket? I mean, please. Yeah, you would think, right? You would think. Anyways, if you're looking for a paid supplement, you don't already have a Kaplan Q-Bag, you can certainly get that for as little for Series 7, $55.80. With the Guru 15 discount code at checkout. That works for all Kaplan products and services. And then Brian has been kind enough to give our viewers a 20% discount on Test Geek content. And listen, Brian is a master distiller. I don't mean that as it relates to alcohol. He's good at distillation of all that study material and distilling it into what's testable. I get this all the time. Well, Brian didn't talk about it. I go, well, that's a hint. Probably not that important if he didn't talk about it. Or if he does talk about it, it's important. You know, me, I just throw it all out there. So everything on our channel is free, the YouTube channel. Almost nothing on my booking page is free. And that's deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. If you win the drawing at the end of our time tonight, you do not win a tutoring at a date and time of your choice. No. You would go to the deantenneytutoring.setmore.com, go to the class tab, and you'll see coaching call for weekly winners. That's what you win. You'll get a link. I'll show up. I'll say, what would you like to talk about? We also do a couple free things. We do a weekly Q&A jam session. That's free for everybody. That's where I have a whiteboard. I say, what would you like to talk about? Thursday, we're premiering, Brian, somebody who wanted to go over underwriting munis. We grab a whiteboard. I walked them all through that. I think it's like 30 minutes or so. And that would be available for you. The other thing we have is if you are one of my students, either through Guru Exam Prep or through a Kaplan class, I collaborate with Kaplan. I also have free office hours for paid students. You are not alone. You are not alone. We have lots of communities, join our test-taking tribe. We have several test-taking tribes here at Guru Nation. We have a Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. Baby Brokers is a term of endearment for rookies in the securities industry. A hat trick is 3 successes in a limited time frame. We're coming up on 2,000 members of that Facebook community. We have lots of chats, but now Facebook tells me, Brian, the chats are going away as of October 5th. I don't know why. It's better for me because I get young ladies posting, images that they shouldn't be in the chat. And I go, get rid of them, So maybe that's why maybe Facebook has been unable to put up a firewall around that. But feel free to join us there. I don't really participate that much in Facebook. I do post this, but I feel bad when people are looking for the Series 7 Guru Facebook page. There is one in this community. But if you're looking to find us, our primary kind of focus is YouTube. We also have Reddit communities. For your 6, our Series 6, we have a subreddit for SIE and 7. We have a subreddit for 63, 65, 66. And we have a subreddit for 9s, 10s, and 24s. As I said, I do teach collaborative classes. Now that one looks like it's gone by. Let me fix that one right away. I'll fix it afterwards. Next one is November 17th through 19th. Same deal, 15% discount if you want to join me for class. And Series 7, I'm doing October 22nd. And I think that takes care of the housekeeping. So let's see what we got going on in the chat, Brian.
Let's do it.
Boom, boom, boom. Shot of Tito's. I always think it's funny that people think there's really a guy named Tito who is mixing vodka in some kind of, if you actually, took a look on satellite, you would see there's all kinds of tanker trucks filled with neutral spirits that are being drunk into Tito's. I'm not a vodka guy, so you will never see me doing vodka as a toasting beverage for artistic victories. The only vodka I drink is in the context of a Bloody Mary. And my friends shared to me, Brian, that they can taste the difference in various vodkas. And I'm like, really? I think it's mainly about marketing.
I say the same thing. How can you? I thought it was supposed to taste.
Yeah. Fail the 65 by 1 question. How many times, Brian, do we hear this, that it's not a roundup? Right? It's
it's the dumbest thing NASA has ever done. Why don't they just make it 70%?
Hello. No, unfortunately, this is not the first time that we've heard of this misfortune before. So it's unfortunate. Now, when you go to tackle this dragon the next time, let's really make sure we have a margin of safety, because we don't want to be anywhere near that, almost don't do or don't pass. So, by the way, you don't need a 70, you need a 70.76. I learned that the hard way. Unfortunately.
He took it out like 8 decimal points. I love it.
Yeah. You are welcome, Doug. Oh, look at that little puppy. I just bought Mom a puppy. I bought her a Pyrenees Border Collie mix. And like anything, Brian, now it requires additional investments. I got to put up a fence. I got to, take him to the dog trainer in Las Vegas. So past the 7 yesterday. All right. Toasting. Oh, let's do the bell first. Doug Kasselberg. I love that last name. Doesn't that sound like a great German beer, Brian?
Yes, it does.
I mean, hey, Oh, you got a toasting beverage too. Is it
water.
vodka or water?
That's water.
Now, I have not, since my San Francisco party days,
Yeah.
drank a whole lot of Fernet, so I better be careful on this one. This is
I don't
this
even
is
know
made
what
by
it is. What
it's made
is
by
that?
it's made by monks. It's made by monks in Europe. It's really kind of a famous thing. So my buddy's still mad at me because he had a Fernet keychain that I took from him. He knew I took it. I asked for it. He gave it to a young lady, and he's never forgiven me. You don't even have that young lady in your life anymore, and what a waste of a Fernet keychain. Cheers, Doug. Ooh, Brian, it's a liqueur. I'll order us one when next time we're in Vegas.
Okay.
Vegas, it's really a San Francisco thing.
Right.
I mean, by far, if you look at Fernet distribution in the U.S., I think it's more like what do most people do? Like if you were in other communities where there's a serious drinking culture, maybe it would be Jameson, the equivalent of a Jameson shot. Oh, look at that. It was a hat trick.
Yes, it was.
Whoa, man, Doug. I've been thinking, Doug, I don't sell coffee cups or mugs or t-shirts or anything on my channel, but I have been thinking about maybe doing some tchotchkes, some swag, and maybe I come up with something for, hat trick people. If you want to buy a guru hat trick or Finna hat trick hat or a tombstone or, I'm trying to figure out something we could do. Get used to my face being around. I love your face, Don. Why would we not like it? You look like a movie star. Yes, you got those sunglasses. You got that spirit smile. You can hang out with us as long as you'd like. I don't like, is it possible to go over AMT for 65? I certainly could do that. I don't think that would take us long. And then I'll ask Brian if he has some thoughts on it. So AMT stands for alternative minimum tax. This is testable for 7, 65, 66. And Brian and I think the 65 can be really challenging because, I can't think of it as a baby 7. It doesn't have the narrative thread that a 7 has. The test question about the alternative minimum tax is that there are some things that are not taxable that become taxable if you're subject to the AMT. It's a binary suitability question. Dawn, are you subject to the AMT? It's a yes or no. Customer knows the answer to that. And basically what it is, if you make too much money and you use all these things as your tax liability, they're going to say redo it. Anyways, I say, if you are, you say, yeah. I go, ooh. So, Don, it would be inappropriate for me to recommend to you private activity bonds. That's what the IRS calls them. We call them industrial development revenue bonds or industrial development agency bonds. So that, I think, is the extent to that question. Brian, your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I haven't heard it from the 65 in a while, but it had been on there. It's definitely on the 7. Yeah, if you don't pay your fair share of taxes because you have too many deductions, you hire 47 lawyers, tax lawyers to, find all these deductions. The IRS says, you have to always pay an alternative minimum tax. So what they'll do is they'll go into your tax form and start disallowing. There's a list of things that they disallow.
Those are called preference
items. Is interest on these private purpose bonds. I don't even know what the depth of the AMT question is on the 65. I know what it is for the 7.
7, that's 7. We gave you verbatim what it is.
That's right.
The other thing, Don, you got to worry about on 65, and I like Brian's comments. You really, in 7 the same way, you got to avoid going down any rabbit holes. I was just talking to somebody today. And boy, she's testing Thursday. I said, you got to let this go. Yeah. That's not a target-rich environment. I said, if you want to do something tomorrow, testing Thursday, how about reviewing mutual funds or muni bonds or customer accounts somewhere, you're going to get a lot of points. By the way, and I was telling her on the other point is we're supposed to, disclose. We are not tax professionals. I say, Don, I am your idea guy. I'm the one who helps you make money. Do I have a general understanding of how my recommendations, investments are taxed? I do, because it's a major impediment to our investment success, but I'm not a tax professional. I want to make sure that I know enough, Don, that your accountant doesn't say, man, who's your investment person? You need a new one. This guy's clueless, right? So I need to have a general understanding, but I do have a video, Don, I'll link to called Death and Taxes. No, just taxes. So I don't talk about death in that thing. Hey guys, wow, look at that avatar. Man, I'm jealous of that anime kind of thing. Look at that. You think, Brian, we could spruce ourselves up like that?
That's how I looked when I was 17.
There you go. Wow. Yeah, we both once were handsome young men. Huh?
With lots of hair.
I've completed my testing journey. Woo! Cheers.
There's another hat trick for you.
2 hat tricks tonight. Wow. Maybe we'll go for, we should probably hashtag it and see how many we get.
Yeah.
No, I don't mean hashtag like search engine optimization. I don't do that either, Brian. I've never used a hashtag in my life. And, I have people who are into SEOs and making sure they title videos correctly and then change the title. Ugh. Too much work. 63 last Friday. The last couple of months, I have the 65, which I passed a few years ago. You are welcome. As I say, Brian and I come into your life for a reason and a season. The reason is to help you matriculate through these exams, make all your marks, get all those P's, as Brian calls them. And the season is how long that takes. So Don was saying we should be prepared for a longer season with Don. We have no problem with that. I've had seasons last, Brian, a year, 2 years. By the way, one more point. You may be back. Because, if you're in our business any length of time, you might get tapped on the shoulder and say, hey.
Would you like to be a principal?
There you go. Would you like to be a DFI? You know what DFI stands for, Brian?
Financial instructor.
No, 24. It stands for designated for incarceration.
Eesh.
If you accept the 24, you may be a DFI. I'm joking. Here we go. A DFI in the house.
There it is.
Now, I'm actually teasing Chanel. I'm teasing because there are what are called rogue reps. There's no such thing as a rogue 24. I just had a 24 I was working with for the last week or two. He passed on Monday, and I kind of teased him, Chanel, to say that as a 24, your interest and the firm's interest will be more aligned because the firm can't say that was a rogue supervisor because FINRA and the SEC will respond, well, you're the one who made Chanel a 24. You're going to be accountable. We can say, I got 10,000 brokers here, and hey, what can I tell you? There's always going to be a bad apple or two. He's a rogue guy. We got rid of him, right? Brian, your videos and practice questions were invaluable for the Series 7-2.
Thank you.
Listen, I think nobody has stronger correlation to the actual exam in terms of phraseology and a reliable practice test score than my friend, the test geek. And so
walking the line, Dean, right? We're walking the line.
Yeah.
I see there and start
you certainly are.
Test questions.
We're not allowed, like, for example, I just told you, Doug, I had a person pass at Monday. I'm not allowed to ask him, like, what was question 35?
Right.
What I can say is, hey, what could we have done a better job helping you with? And Brian and I probably spend, I think, as much time as anybody. I'm aware of Brian, trying to make sure that we are, as close to that line as we can be. But what I was going to say about the correlation, we have, Doug, people who have variance that's just off the chart. I just had another example of somebody who took an achievable practice score, Brian, got an 85. They did an STC practice test and they got a 65.
Wow.
And that's just unacceptable because you got to have a practice score you can rely upon. I said, why don't you go to the channel, pick a practice test. I got all of them for all the exams, hit pause, answer, hit play to get another data point where you're seeking data. Now, Brian only has one data point. It's a good one. But that's why I tell people they have Brian's practice test. Use that as your last mark. I like Brian them to do your practice test maybe 2 days out. That's right. One of their final marks just to kind of see where they're at.
And the point you made, Dean, you want to get several data points because of this variance, right? There's variance in my practice finals. There's variance. That's why when Dean's got all of these folks have these practice finals that they review, it's absolutely wonderful data points. And you want as many of those data points. I like them taking the average. I don't write 50 practice finals because
that's a fine
STC and everybody else has got them. Mine is just one of those data points.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian.
Find the average somewhere in
Brian and I, 7-10 days out is when you want to start doing intellectual inventory through practice tests. And you're not mindlessly do them to just mindlessly do them. We're doing them to identify areas for remediation. I tell people no more than one a day, and they should spend as much time on remediation as doing that practice test. And the thing there is, I would be happy with 4. If you said 7 days out, I'm going to do 4. That's fine with me. Just make sure you make that commitment. You spend that time remediating. And boom, boom, next Thursday. All right, Chanel, right on. Hey guys, joining from New York City. Woo, the Big Apple. Passed my 7 last Thursday. Woo! I like my cup. I got another one of these cups.
Yes.
That's what I do. I drink and I know things. Brian and I say are blessed because we know things that people are willing to pay for. I just raised my rate, Brian, $350 an hour. I keep thinking I'm going to keep raising it. At some point, I can retire again. Because I came out of retirement for this side hustle.
We talked about this 3.5 years ago.
I know. Brian teases me. He goes, Dean, you're not retired. You haven't been retired for 4 years. I go, I'm trying to get back there. I'm trying. Thanks you both for all your help. Couldn't have done without you. So, John, I don't know if you've completed your testing journey, but my guess is you probably have a 63 or 66 in your future. So our season isn't probably over just yet. I'm scoring mid to high 70s. Love it. That's a great spot to be. I'm fine with that. Got a 70-ton benchmark. I'm happy. You're looking great. Yeah. So the most important thing tonight is to get some sleep. I don't know about you, but when I'm tired, my reading skills are greatly diminished. And one thing I like to do on weekends, and the weekend version of the New York Times, they have 2 quizzes I like. They have a current event quiz, and then they have a history quiz. And when I'm tired, I do all the things I tell people not to do in a question. That's right. I just hit it, and it's dinosaurs. Oh, it goes before this, and then I don't realize the guy who discovered the dinosaur, not the dinosaur, So you want your reading skills, particularly on NASA exams, to be in top form. So tonight, I want you to get a good night's rest. You want to be confident in the execution of your study plan because it's over. You want to be confident in yourself. And most importantly, tomorrow, you've got to be confident in your answers. You can't be sucking up this exam. You can't be changing answers. Who did we just have, Brian, who told us he missed it by the rounding error? Was that Noah? Noah, I would be interested if you're still here. Remember, you put things in chat, you're on blast. You may not want to put your personal business into chat. That being said, though, I'd be interested to know if you did change answers. And, if you tell Brian and I that you changed 4 or 5 answers, Brian and I are going to tell you that it's not likely that you changed all of them from wrong answers to right answers, that it's more probable that you changed 4 or 5, the majority of them, to the wrong answer.
I just talked to a gentleman yesterday, same score as Noah, 91 out of 130, missed it by 1 question. And I said, did you change answers? He goes, well, I finished with about 40 minutes left.
Go home.
My answers and said, I haven't answered my question. Did you change answers? He says, yeah, I changed a few. And I said, roundabout, how many did you change? 15.
Oh my God.
And
your
I lost.
Tomorrow.
I lost. It was 8:15 in the morning. He was calling me from the East Coast, and I lost it. I was grumpy morning, hadn't finished my coffee. He told me he changed 15 questions. I thought,
I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Ari Gaming. I like that as well. That looks like an Irish kind of a name. I don't know.
It does.
But yes, please remember tomorrow, you got to be confident in your answers. Good test takers know their flash response is their best response.
That's right.
Good test takers don't change answers. If you watch a game show, I think game shows are good to find out or model good testing behavior. And if you're watching like Jeopardy or a game show or something, and the good test takers answer quickly and they don't change their answer, like on Jeopardy, you see a guy erasing and writing a new answer, erasing and writing a new answer. That's usually not the guy who's got the right answer. Well, wish you luck. Bon chance, mon ami. Bon chance. I like your little avatar too. That's kind of cute. 8:30. We will wish you luck. We will wish you luck for sure. Taking the 65 retake on Saturday, got 72, 77, 78, 80, 82 on Past Perfect. Missed it by 10 my first time. I think that you're in good shape. I like that the 72, that's a good pattern right there, right? Test question for tomorrow. That is known as the range. Yes. The range, the difference between your 72 and your 82. And you have a small standard deviation. Your data set is tight. I like that. And I like that 72. We toss that out. We toss out the 82. That looks really good. What do you think, Brian, about the scores? You'd be in good shape for Saturday.
Yep, I certainly do. I like it.
Ring that bell.
Clarence. All right.
Cheers, Cody. Cheers.
Hope you don't mind water.
Yeah, well, we don't know it's really water. It could be vodka,
It's water.
Ring that bell, Clarence. We have a BYU bring your own booze at the Cigar Lounge alcohol license. It's really kind of funny. Only in Arizona, they just think it's free. So you can bring your own booze to drink, Brian. But I've been bringing called a Herradura Ultra Tequila, and it's clear. It's clear because they double filter it. It's not clear because it's a Blanco. But I could tell the guy at the Cigar Lounge, and it looks at it because it's clear, and people can't tell if it's tequila or water or whatever it happens to be. Dusky course on all your videos helped immensely. All right. Good draw on it. Got
Good
one
job.
question to recognize. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah,
Love
that's
it.
awesome.
All formulas were in written form, no actual equation. That confirms what Brian and I usually tell people. I think people overestimate how much math they're going to have to actually do on 65, 66. I've seen it bite math geeks in the butt because they think I'm going to get a lot of math questions and I'm good at math. I go, well, that's great, but you're not going to get an opportunity to, get a bunch of points on that. ID and Brian failed 65 3 times. Ugh. Fourth attempt, late November. Jeff, I love your resiliency. There's all kinds of successful people in our business who are had to overcome that misfortune. Took the exam in March. I'm full-time employed. What's your advice? Well, I use the word, Jeff, matriculate. You got to matriculate into scoring position. What that means is a sustained systematic study plan. It's much harder when you are working full-time. Brian and I will stipulate that in advance. And I was talking to somebody today, and listen, I said, where are we going to find the study blocks we need? It sounds like it's going to be maybe the weekends. Maybe we can smash 3 of them in there during the week, perhaps in the morning. But my biggest recommendation was you still have to have a study plan. It still has to be systematic. It still has to have study blocks. And then that means if you're going to do Saturday and Sunday, I'd say, Jeff, how many study blocks of 90 minutes am I getting from you on Saturday? And maybe you say 4. And well, listen, 90 minutes, you must take a 30-minute break, 90, 30, 90, 30. That's 6 hours. And that's about the max I think anybody should be studying in a day. I'd be okay if you told me 3. Whatever you do on Saturday, you're going to step it down Sunday, 1 block. And then what you're going to do is rotate your activity. So on Saturday, if you're doing 4 study blocks, you're not going to read for 6 hours, particularly the Kaplan 65 book. Oh, my God. You could make Harry Carey Saturday night. No. If you're going to do reading in the morning, then watch a video to consolidate that reading or start with a video to kind of dent the reading, do some practice questions. If you rotate that activity, I think you'll stay fresher longer. Your thoughts on that, Brian?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know you work full time. I always ask people, do you work full time? Do you get a chance to work there?
Are you part-time studier? Yeah.
Do you have young ones at home? Because that's a lot of time and commitment as well, right? But you've got to carve out a study block at least every day. It's got to become part of your life.
I like that Jeff is saying he's doing a chapter a day. He's doing a chapter a day. I love it. One quiz. So this is how we mean about matriculation. So you're going to do 25, 30 questions, get a 75%, move on to the next chapter. Pay attention. When you get that next chapter done, again, quiz, 25, 30 questions. Brian, I think it says 20. I mean, everybody's different about how many performance opportunities, but enough to kind of get a flavor of whether you understood it. Once you get 75, you do not move on. If you don't get a 75, you remediate before you move on. But if you get that 75, then you do a custom quiz of 1 and 2. You keep bringing up that caboose because that late November, Jeff, one of the challenges for part-time studiers executing study plans over that lengthy period of time is it can be a challenge to keep bringing up the caboose. So you get to late November and you forget what you did in late September. So you got to make sure you keep bringing up that caboose. That could be a whole separate study block where each week you just say, okay, I'm going to do a custom quiz with the chapters and quizzes I did this week, perhaps would be a way to do that. Exactly. Brian, I know Brian and I are simpatico. You got to be careful too. So Jeff, Brian are simpatico. What I mean by that is you got to be careful too about getting too many voices in your head, right? So, one reason I don't mind collaborating with Brian is because we have differences of opinion on certain things, but it's not major. It's not material test question, not material.
No.
And you got to be careful. Got to pick a voice and stick with it, or somebody with a voice. So, don't let too many people get in your head. As long as those voices are good, then fine. Brian mentioned in an email that now, don't you hate that when you memorialize something, Brian, in an email, because it's going to show back up in either a deposition or a live stream? I'm joking. I think here, I'll take the lead on this. Brian, my problem with Past Perfect is that I think they're too obtuse, and they take people into the weeds more often than not. Now, the good news on that is it's better to have too much than not enough. And we were just talking about practice test scores. So if you are doing well on Past Perfect practice tests, the variance is in a big way in your favor, because that I think what they're trying to do is stretch your mind and hope it doesn't go back to the same spot. I'm not sure they end up doing that, because there are people who just really get struggle on Past Perfect. I told a very high level person at Kaplan that I think the Past Perfect salespeople deserve a bonus. And he was laughing. He said, why? I said, I think they've convinced employers that tormenting their test takers have some productive value, like maybe that they're going to get some sales knowledge, product knowledge they can deploy after they pass. I so don't believe in that. I believe that passing the test is a separate thing than production. Your real product knowledge comes from sales efforts, not taking and passing tests. So this is a barrier to entry. It's a rite of passage. So I don't really agree with that ethos, if that's what it is, but I think that's part of it. Brian, do you remember in the email what you said? Was it basically what I just said about that?
No, as you know, we try to be as neutral as possible. Do we
I call that agnostic.
Exactly. And, do we have opinions on some of these things? Well, after 30 years, it's hard not to. Right. And for all the things that Dean just said, right, they oftentimes go too deep in the woods. Their variances,
too much math.
That's what I look at. It's not because I don't like somebody or the way in which they write something. It's just I want variance. I want data points, and some of the providers have more variance than others, and that's where the opinion comes from.
Yeah, you know what? That's just proof of that Brian is different than Dean. Brian is not a hater. I am. Would you recommend finding and reading NASA's Model Act? Sure. I mean, I'm a big fan of reading anything that will help you, Oz. So, the test prep vendors are working off that. That's what they're using to create their content. So I would call that a primary source. Brian and I were just talking, this is what we probably need to get better lives than this, but Brian and I were talking about a particular thing on a NASA exam. And, Brian took the time to do the homework and go back to those source documents and those model rules to see what we think our interpretation of that is. Unfortunately, NASA doesn't provide the interpretation. So, they just kind of give you a bullet point and say, here you go. But I do think that's productive. It's a timing thing. I would say that for sure, every test taker, when they're studying, should have at least the test specifications right next to them as they study, or FINRA's content outline. So you can kind of check that document off. If you buy Brian's course, he has a PDF, and I think do all of them start with the test specifications, the content outline, Brian, where he just tells you, here's what you're going to be tested on. So I'm a favor. What do you think of that, Brian?
I would have to warn Haas a little bit about this, because those model acts, they're written by attorneys, and it's an attorney language. If you have legal background and you're okay with reading section A, 0.1-5, it gets pretty difficult.
It is, yeah.
And I would really caution people to do that much of a deep dive. Believe me, I have the book right there, and I'm reading these model acts. Yeah. And I have a cousin who's an attorney, and it's just, I don't know, man. I don't know if it's going to be productive.
Okay, and I would warn you too. I just add to that, Oz, that the template comes from the 50s, and so there's a lot of very arcane kind of grammar and language beyond the legalese. Like, we would call it a transportation company, but they call it a common contract carrier, for example.
Yeah.
Right. So stuff like that.
Oh, what was that?
I did great on the first 3 sections, the dam laws, regulations, prohibition. Well, that's big time test fodder. That's about half your exam on us. Yeah, Brian?
I'm sorry. About your vocabulary. Remember the whiskey warehouse receipts?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
What the hell is a whiskey warehouse receipt?
Yeah, in the old days, that was a medium of exchange and therefore security. We're talking about San Francisco tonight, Brian, and you may know this historically, but when the earthquake hit San Francisco, a lot of the rest of the country thought this was God punishing the sinful people that were hail from San Francisco. But then it was kind of fun because all the San Franciscans said, well, if that's true, how come this fire stopped right at the red light district, the whiskey warehouses, the whiskey that was all down there on Montgomery Street? All that whiskey was still okay, as well as all those other business establishments. Come to find out, the guy who's in charge, the colonel who was in charge of the provost there at San Francisco, he wouldn't deploy his forces to do anything to help the mansions on Knott Hill, but whiskey, we gotta save the whiskey. You probably also know the story of President Lincoln, and they were telling him that Grant has a drinking problem, and he said, well, tell me what he drinks and I'll send him more of it. That guy fights. What are you guys' thoughts on FINRA lowering the unscored questions from 10 to 5? I posted that on social media, Brian. Were you aware of that?
I was not.
Yeah, so I like it because it ends up acting like you get more time for the same amount of performance opportunities.
Yeah.
So why not? Well, I think it's a great thing. I think act like you should think of those when I sometimes tell people, if you get a question you don't recognize, you've never seen it in any of the study materials, Brian, Test Geek, or Past Perfect or Kaplan, I always tell people, well, maybe it's one of those experimental questions. Just guess B, assign it to the universe. So, hello, Dean and Brian. I am studying for the SIE and I'm having trouble with index options. Well, Caroline, I just said this. Guess B and move on. I can't think of any other test question on the SIE about index options other than they settle in cash. So if I'm short an OEX, that's the S&P 100, the test question is I don't have to deliver, thank God, 100 shares of 100 stocks. What I deliver to the buyer is the cash equal to the intrinsic value. Carolina, I think people overestimate the amount of options expertise needed for the SIE. You could, if you tell me you missed your SIE because of options, I say, no, you have bigger problems elsewhere. Now, when you go on to a 7, not so. You're going to get lots of questions. Brian, do you think there's anything other than index options, settle in cash?
I just might think that the only index option that shows up on the SIE is asking whether or not, as a matter of fact, it's in I have one of my practice file, whether or not the index option is in the money, out of the money, or at the money. It's a simple intrinsic value question.
Well, in Carolina, I had a guy, Brian, who, until I told him it was an index, because he just thought it was a stock, and he answered correctly. I said, oh, you got the index. Index. They freaked out. So, so if you just answered it, I think Brian's point is a good one, where it's a foreign currency option or an index option. We call those non-equity options. Right. And if you just go about your business not knowing that, I think you're going to be fine. Yeah. I'm not sure what trouble you're having, but again, the only test question I'm aware of would be something not dependent on knowing anything about index options. The answer, yeah, Brian's example. Exactly. Or if they settle in cash, you don't have to deliver the underlying securities in the index. Looking for a study group. Well, Kelly, I've been trying to do a better job of this. I would go to Baby Brokers doing hat tricks, and the chats are going away on October 5th. I don't know if the chat is still up there, but just put that in the Facebook community. I'm sure you'll have all kinds of people get a hold of you. We also, Kelly, can put that in the community page on my YouTube channel. I've been trying to make better use of that community page. Post it there. I think you'll find some takers as well. So who knows? Maybe you'll find a taker here in the chat. I'd warn you, again, don't put your email in the chat or any personal information. Kelly, my email is dean@guruexamprep.com. If you want to send me an email just about this and you want to accept Kelly and, meet for a study group, send me an email and I'll put you together. That way you don't have to worry about somebody, trying to sell you something. I don't know. There you go. You already got a taker. Jeff said he's there you go, Kelly. So again, I'll be looking, Jeff, for an email, Kelly, an email. I mean, it's your privacy. If you want to put that in the chat, I'm fine. I would recommend not. I would recommend send those emails to me and I'll match you. For those testing, Brian's practice test live at were truly helpful. Make sure you utilize it. Right? Yeah, I think it's a great resource. We got lots of people who says it makes a big difference in their passing. My 75 was Notman. Notman's fine. I love Notman. Notman is great. That's fantastic. Notman Marks. I feel sorry. I love Brian Marks, and I just feel bad that people call it Notman instead of Notman Marks. I have a stronger ego than Brian Marks, but he's a hell of a guy. If I were Brian, I'd probably switch the name. Marks Notman. Notman has retired. It's Brian Marks now. Averaging 7175. I like it. Been rewatching the videos. Not sure how many math problem 7. I have a video acolyte. Just put in the church are all the math necessary to pass the Series 7. Please note the title. All the math necessary. Sometimes people say, well, this isn't in your video. I said, go back to the title. I didn't say all the math. I said all the math necessary to pass your 7. You can watch that acolyte 2 times. If you want to just watch Dean do it, you can do that. But I've also had a student kind enough on the tutoring that I tutored all the way through that. And she gave me permission to post that on the channel. So there's 2 versions. There's a version where you watch me do it, and there's a version where with a student where we actually go through it. I do comment in that video too about what's more testable than not. So acolyte, I comment, for example, you can't be fumbling around with calculating parity. You got to be able to do that as a matter of routine. So there's some math that you can't be fumbling around with. There you go. Getting caught up on options. Yeah, max gain, max loss. I think you're only going to get perhaps one question about where there's actual numbers that you have to come up with, and it's not even max gain or loss. It's going to be a break even, and that's pretty kind of simple in this regard. Break even just means same dollars in as dollars out, right? So if I pay 53 for the stock and I buy a 50 put for 1, I'm out of pocket 53. I'm out of 1. My break even is 54. It's that simple on the SIE. Now, if you're going on to a 7, it's going to be a lot more in depth. But for SIE, options is not material. It is not material. The investment vehicle you want to be a master of for your SIE is mutual funds. You're going to get tormented on mutual funds. So make sure you're good on open-end and closed-end funds. There you go, inch by inch. Your test is a cinch. Yard by yard, it's hard. I've actually been adding that MP now to my explication videos where if I'm doing parity, I'm now closing that video by saying, remember, inch by inch, parity is a cinch. Yard by yard, parity is hard. I've been working at a large BD's trading desk. All right, woohoo. I'm wondering what the next step should be in the industry. Well, I think a CFA is a waste of money. I really do. I mean, people, that credential, do some more homework on that. I probably should retract what I just said, but what do you think, Brian? I mean,
yeah, that's for big portfolio managers.
I'm managing stuff, MBA, working the trading is roughly 6 months. I don't think a credential on the trading desk, if that's where you're staying, is on the trading desk. I don't think that's going to be about credentials. It's going to be about performance. And nobody's not going to promote you because you have a CFA or CMD or MBA. It's going to be more about, how you're performing in the functions, so to speak. The business was transitioning as I got out of it. I'm an old stockbroker guy. I say, Brian, I'm a stockbroker. The relationship you have with me is free. As part of that relationship, I recommend that you invest in certain things. That's a transaction. That's how I get paid. That's kind of school. But when I was transitioning, Brian, or getting out of the business, it was going to less product oriented and more comprehensive financial planning, that kind of thing. I don't know why you don't have a CFP here, but maybe you're not going to ever be doing retail business. So that could be it. I don't know. I tell people, listen, when I came in the 80s, do I know how to build a book in the 80s? I do. And I transitioned from being a retail broker to an institutional broker. So I do have some expertise in sales and stuff, but I feel not competent to give career advice now that I'm in my 64th year and the business is much different than when I was a baby broker. So, Brian, what do you think about this question?
It's the same thing too, right? I got in the business at pretty much the same time, early 90s. It was all transactional based. It wasn't relational. I had customers all over the country. A lot of people would kind of raise their eyebrows when I tell them I never met 90% of my clientele, right? What do I need to see them for? To know what color eyes they have? That's the way it was back then.
Yeah.
It's not
During
that way.
practice tests, I changed 3 different answers. Well, then don't do it. Why do you keep repeating that if you're getting them wrong? Right? So don't do it on the actual test. Acolyte, I love what you did last sentence. Don't do it on the test. By the way, don't do it in the practice test either. That's why it's called a practice test. Stop. Right? Because you prove to yourself that that's a bad practice. So stop it now. Next practice. I've had people in a practice test where I say, hey, stop doing that and let's see what the score is. And sometimes that gets them that new plateau on scoring. So,
Dean, may I tell a really quick story?
Of course, always. What happened?
I was working with a gentleman today. I've been working with him for several weeks. And we were working on a practice final, remediating a practice final.
Right.
And we went over this. It was Linda, who was had an interior design shop. She was a sole prop, comes to the IAR and says, I'm thinking about selling my business. And do you think it'd be best to go to a partnership or a corporation? Right. That was the base of the question.
Right.
So as soon as I saw that, because I know instantly, what they're asking, it's about the different business types, sole props, partnerships. Right. And I said, well, it's easy. I didn't even look at the answer choices. I answered it first in my head. Corporations are the easiest to liquidate. You think about it, most corporations have stock, the stock trades on exchange, boom, it's done, right? And he goes, yeah, but she's in the interior design business. And it might be, I said, dude, it's a widget shop. She's selling candlesticks. It doesn't matter. It's about the type of business.
Yeah,
and that's why people change answers, right?
You got to read it once for context. I would have, Brian, I was working with somebody today, and it was a paragraph. And I said, here's what I like to do with this paragraph. I first like to just see what answers are going to be offered to me. As we went through the answer set, I said, now we already know what the question's about just based on the answers that are being offered to us.
Right.
I said, I haven't read the question yet, but here's my answer. I think this is the answer, just based on the answer set alone. I said, the other thing I like to do is read the last sentence first, just to kind of see again, what is this question about? Because Brian's point, the Linda and the candlesticks, sometimes they got in the first part of the question, a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with answering it. So we were going through this one question. We read the first sentence. I go, ooh, sounds like it's going to be about, as I call it, the pivot. It sounds like this is where the question's heading. And then your point, Brian, it didn't head there. It just had nothing to do with the next two sentences, right? And so that's why I always say RTFQ, read the full question, read the full answer set. You shouldn't have a time constraint on the exam. If you have one, it's you creating it by turning aim and shoot, point and click questions into judgment questions that certainly aren't there, right? So I'm with you, Brian. I had a guy, sometimes it's in most areas of life, I guess having a brain housing group that can think quickly and can think efficiently is a blessing. But sometimes we have people, Brian, who are just very smart and on the test too smart for their own good. This guy gave me a very intellectually coherent answer. It was a great answer. I said, that's not the question you were asked.
But it has nothing.
I mean, that's a great answer, but that's not the question that was asked. So just, try and pay attention. But I find that more of a problem on NASA exams.
Absolutely.
Than FINRA exams.
Absolutely.
63 today. Woo! Well, I tell you, we have some good-looking men and women, don't we? With these pictures, I gotta level up my game, man.
Yeah, man.
That looks like Grayson. Looks like you're like a male model there or something. And you can never have too much black in your wardrobe. I get grief because I wear black a lot. I go, you can't have too much black in the wardrobe. So, cheers. Oh, did I do the cheers already? I'm not sure if I did. I'm halfway through the book. Well, Zach. When walking through the valley of the shadow of death, keep walking. Right? So you got to get to the other end. So keep reading. No, Zach, I don't think so. I mean, in terms of the test, the answer is yes. I'm not sure I'd say yes in terms of the book. Right. I mean, there are areas of the test that are more testable than others, like disclosures, unethical business practices, that kind of thing. But Zach, and I'll see what Brian thinks about this. It's a buffet, take what you like, leave what you don't. When I get sign up for a course, the first thing I want to do is read the book cover to cover, as close to one setting as possible, not highlighting, not taking notes, just so I get a general idea of the terrain. The Marines, we call it reconnaissance. Just do a little recon. The way I do my recon is to read that book. And I had Zach, somebody who was incredulous with me. How long is that going to take? I said, well, I don't know. Sit down and read for an hour, see how many pages you read, and then take your page count, divide by that. Now, Brian and I are sympathetic to our new generation, and that they may not want to read the book cover to cover, even though we suggest it. And Brian and I have made a podcast series, 65 and 66. It's not a substitute, but our idea was, if you watch these videos, at least you'll have that same recon. You'll know what this thing looks like, so to speak, cover to cover. So that's what I would suggest. But right now, I'm just happy that you're telling us you're halfway through the book and you're reading the book. I'll take that as the Series 7 guru. I love that. And then I wouldn't worry about certain chapters and sections. I would just try and get through the book. Brian, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You said it perfectly. There's really nothing in the textbook where you want to concentrate more than somewhere else. On the test, you do, right? Right now you're doing the recon. When you start getting down into the tactical attack, then you want to start looking at points of interest that you know is going to be on the test, those that are target rich, as Dean says. Then we can start talking about that. But while you're going through the textbook, no, just do your recon. Then once you start kind of narrowing things down, then we can start concentrating on certain areas.
Yeah, the other thing, Zach, I would just tutored somebody just before a class she's testing Thursday. And I said, what are you going to do tomorrow? I said, I'm not opposed if you want to reread some low-hanging fruit, you want to reread your options or your munis or your mutual funds or customer accounts. I think that's certainly something that, I'm not opposed to it. I said, please don't go down any rabbit holes. And if you're listening, I don't think I'm putting your business on blast, and only you know who you are. But she had got a couple questions wrong on processing transactions, and then she did 100 practice questions on that. Oh. I said, please don't do that tomorrow, please. That's not going to be a good idea. All right, super chat. Woo! Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, can you imagine how mad, Sikander, you would be? There was an instructor who had two prices. One price if you wanted to attend his class. Another if you wanted to take him to take the exam. He was charging $10,000, and he had a guy at the Prometric site. And I would show up at the Prometric site and say, hey, I'm a Sikander Mede. And he goes, no, you're not. I say, I have 5,000 that says I am. He says, welcome, Sikander. All right, now that 5 for me, 5 for the guy, Prometric guy. Sikander, can you imagine how mad you would be? When they caught this guy, they disallowed every registration of any person who ever used him for tutoring or classes. Can you imagine, Sikander? You get a call. Hey, you know that Dean guy? Okay, yeah, I remember him. He helped me with my exam. It was a great help, and tutored me, and I attended one of his classes. And why are you asking me about Dean? He goes, well, we caught Dean taking the test for other folks. And you say, well, what's that got to do with me? I said, well, we're not quite sure if you took the deal or not. And so you're going to have to retest. Oh, my God. I'd be looking for me with a pitchfork. Right? That's actually Happy with your voices. There you go. I love it. Happy with your voice.
That's a true
right?
Story. Yeah.
It's a true story. No, it's a true story.
Not Dean. It wasn't Dean.
Yeah. Please. I could see somebody clipping that. Oh, my God.
I believe it was in Pennsylvania.
I have a hater, Brian. He clipped our video and he put it on social media. He's probably going to clip that one and say, here's this guy taking the test for other people.
Hey, he's a fraud.
Oh, God. Oh, how come that came up? Let's see. We're going to get rid of that. That's not correct. Looks like we're coming down the back 9 on our time together. Woohoo! Thank you so much. Scared to take the 65. Well, fear and greed are two great motivators. So as long as it's not debilitating, oh man, I need too much Fernet already. Yeah. As long as that's not preventing you from matriculation, that's okay. A healthy amount of fear is, okay, but don't make it, make it stop. And sometimes, I think what can happen is you think you study for 4 hours and you spend 3 hours thinking about not passing and being scared and anxious, and an hour just actually, doing the work. Listen, everybody's different, but I like to sometimes to get myself motivated and moving in the right direction. I like to say to myself, okay, what does my world look like? if I don't make the mark? Is it the end of the world? Okay, and then I say, okay, now that I've accepted that, let me do what I can do to make sure that doesn't happen, right? So I like it. That's right. Pay attention to that. Pay attention. Don, if you guys ever have anyone ask about exam, tell them to run away.
Well, now I don't know if I'm going to give an opinion anymore, but
yeah, Don, I'll just tie it to our past perfect discussion. My personal opinion is past perfect is too fat.
Yep.
And exam FX is too skinny.
Exactly.
Right. So I think being too fat is better than being too skinny. And Don, I really do recommend if you're using exam FX, I always tell people then please make sure you supplement with Brian's paid supplement or my free supplement, but I would definitely supplement. Tips to stay calm. I feel like my heart is going, well, again, we don't, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a career guy. I'm not the Tony Robbins of testing. I don't do hype videos. I pretty simple. I think the best way to take care of it is to overlearn. Because I think if you overlearn things, your confidence level can come up. And that confidence is so key. So however you get that confidence, fake it till you make it, overlearning. But I would tell you that your heart pounding, the systems are all linked. And I don't think that's good for your brain and housing group that your heart is pounding. So maybe let the test come to you. Don't be too on top of the test, right? That's one way to do it. Maybe before you start taking the test, just take a mental trip to Tahiti. Right? So, Brian, you have any things about calming down the heart and getting rid of anxiety?
Yeah, but
I had a pill. I could be
not appropriate for in this.
Okay.
No, I mean it's always an issue for a lot of people, and it's something that you have to address. But
third time. So we would like to have more data. How close were you the first time? How close were you the second time? What are you doing different the third time? When I say it's insanity to repeat the same things and expect a different outcome, I'd like more information.
Right.
Any tips the tips would be based on, what you have done the first two times, and it would be dependent on what those first two scores were. As you know, we were just talking about anxiety. The anxiety level rises dramatically when it's your third time. So you try and put that aside, right? But if that third time you miss it, it's going to be much different than missing it the second time. So with this information, Emmanuel, I don't really have a lot of thing. I do have a video called "You Failed, Is It Over?" Spoiler alert, the answer is no. I have 5 recommendations about how to proceed when you've missed the mark. Now, if you haven't done this already, the first of those, I'll give the first one, is to get the FINRA Series 7 content outline and do an intellectual debrief with yourself, trying to identify what areas you can remediate that would find you more points. Now, I would also warn you, you got to be careful because the draws are different. And so a lot of times when people fail the second time, Emmanuel, I'm not sure if this is true of you, but what they do is they study the last draw instead of the draw they may get this time. And so they're expecting to get these questions they missed. They work real hard and they get a different draw, and the stuff they were strong on kind of slips. So you got to make sure this third time that everything you brought above par. You've kept everything you were good at above par, and you now got all those other things above par, so no one thing gets you in. Brian, your thoughts on this one?
Absolutely, yeah. I always use the score sheets. I look at the weak areas. The performance tracker, as you know, Dean, we talk about it every week from the simulated exam, right? The chain is only as strong as its weakest links. You got to find those weak areas. That is your job.
Identify
that third exam. You got to find those weak areas.
Well, and Brian, that's why we're big fans of Kaplan, because Kaplan has the best performance tracker in the industry, where it makes it easier for you to identify those areas. I'm taking 24 next week. I do have a video. I'm not sure, Chanel, if you've actually gone to my 24 playlist, but I do have a corporate investment banking video there, and people tell me it's very helpful. I like to tell stories. Some people give me grief about telling stories. When I started the channel, Chanel, nobody's going to watch an hour-long video. I have hour-longs. I have 2 minutes now. I have 4 hours. I think it's like 90 minutes on banking. But what they tell me they find helpful is I tell a story of like IPOs of Facebook and what the firm commitment underwriting was and what the liability was. So watch that video. I think it can be very helpful. By the way, I don't know your background, but when people miss the 24, what they have in common with their risk is they're usually packaged product people. And they've been, doing mutual funds for 20 years. So they took a 20 years ago. They're doing mutual funds. And now there's all kinds of things on 24 they've never dealt with, they're not familiar with. And those two areas are banking and trading. So if I'm doing a 20-person 24 class, the cohort's 20 people, I start the class by saying it truthfully. Many of my 24 classes, everybody passes. And when I lose somebody, here is the, disclosure. When I lose somebody, I don't usually lose much. It's another like these 65 situations. Very rarely, Chanel, does somebody blow the 24 completely. They're, usually close, which is a little more frustrating. But when they're struggling, it's on banking and trading. The bankers and traders struggle on IRAs and mutual funds, but it won't do them in, right? So they're not usually at risk. So that would be my recommendation. Your recommendation, Brian?
Didn't Facebook do it Reg S, an offshore?
They did that before the IPO. Reg S, they did an offshore. I think I talked about that. They did.
That's why we tell those stories in class.
Yeah,
right?
I think stories are easy to remember than minutia.
So.
All right, let's see. Third time, 67, 64. Say, well, there we go. So, man, it looks like, we wouldn't expect that score to be lower the second time. So that variable could be what I just discussed, right? You did the work, but you were too narrowly focused on the things you thought you need to fix for the second time. And maybe some of those other times fell along the line. So I already gave my first recommendation. Watch the video, get the other 5, and then you can always send me an email, and we can talk further. Stay engaged with the 66. Well, there you go, Julie. I get it. I totally get it. It's not Russian literature. Any general study tips?
Pretty
Stay
close.
the course. Stay the course. Stay the course. Well, I like Russian literature. I guess if you don't like Russian literature. Is the brochure itself an advertisement? No, I'm not sure what the context of the question is, but no, it's a disclosure document. It's not an advertisement. Rabbit holes will be the end of me. All right. Yeah. It looks like we're close to our ending. Hi, how are you? Well, there you go. I'm not a hype guy. Listen, so I'm an OG, and I feel like if you aren't motivated on your own to come into our industry, because if you're poor and you deserve to be rich, our industry is for you. And I don't think I should have to beg you or motivate you to come into this business. So I'm just not that guy. So now listen, if you had a rough day, I'm more than happy to kind of buck you up, get you an adult beverage, but you should be self-motivated. Breathing exercise, right on. Look at these great avatars, man.
Wow.
I mean, geez, I'm feeling inadequate, man. I got to get a new avatar. 100 to 2 was struggling with test anxiety. There you go. I think breathing exercise. That was my brother's a Buddhist. My brother's a Buddhist. That's the mantra, right? Yeah. Brian, what you do Buddhist? You do mantras too?
No.
I think the big one. I think is
one of the reasons that you and I kind of struggle helping people with anxiety. Yeah. You and I don't have a lot of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So it's hard to kind of give people advice from something.
Ignorance is bliss. Right. So, do I need to take? Well, 63 primary. You need a lot of practice tests. Usually, I don't say. I say lay base, but 63. You really want to make sure you try and exhaust the Q bank, because that also has a time constraint for some folks. So I would take as many tests as you can for 63. If you're in the 90s, RV, I think you're good. You're good. All right, here's the last time, and then it's time for our drawing, Brian. So finish on time tonight. If I feel like, well, reach out and make sure, Gage, that's the case. So again, my email is series7guru@guruexamprep.com. And if you're not sure, then send me an email and I'll tell you it's a rabbit hole or not. But don't make your own assumption about a rabbit hole, because it may or may not be, right? Get some expertise on that one. All right, Brian, we know the drill here, so let me go get the Wheel of Fortune fired up.
Boy, I haven't written on my board all night.
Yeah, this was a weird one, wasn't it? It was a weird one for sure. So choose our live stream. I'm trying to figure out how we did this. Okay, listen, pay attention. This is a test question. Can you read and follow instructions? Do not write down on the whiteboard what Brian writes down until he's got it down and I say, okay. When I say okay, if you would like to potentially win the coaching call, you need to write in the chat exactly what Brian has on the board. Otherwise, my little wheel I'm going to spin won't pick that up. Okay, so Brian, the word is.
Living in Seattle, we are glad to finally this week welcome back the rain.
Oh, only people in Seattle would welcome back the rain. All right, so if you want to participate, put that in the chat. I'll put the Wheel of Fortune up on the board. And there is our wheel. And let me get rid of that. It's got to be capitalized. So our Nitria, boy, that's a neat name. I like that. You got to put a capital R. So put that back in. Otherwise, it's not going to pick it up. So you need to pick that up there. Whoop, that's not what we want.
Nope.
That's what we want. All right. And then remember, you don't win tutoring. What you win is a coaching call. And the way you claim your winnings is to go to deanteniertutoring.setmore.com, go to the class tab. I don't think I put it up yet, so it might not be there this evening. It'll be there in the morning sometime. And you just claim your coaching call. Okay, we got 11 entries. Is that it? Everybody in? Are all our tickets in before we do the drawing? Last call. All right, here we go. All right, Don, how cool. I love it. That's a great winner for sure. Hey, now remember, if you didn't win, you still remember, can join the weekly Q&A I do on that same place. You go to the class tab. I don't have that up yet today, but it'll be up tomorrow at some point. So that is free for everybody. So you can go to I think I call it Guru Nation Weekly Q&A Jam Session, and that's for everybody. I think there is one up already, but it may not let you. When I hit the limit, it automatically removes it from that tab. So because I don't want to have like 60 people on there, and so I think I cap it at like 10 is the max. All righty, wow, Don, how exciting! All right, back to Brian and I. Boom. Let's get rid of that. Boom. All right, everybody, we're here every Tuesday, 5 o'clock Arizona time. Feel free to join us on any given Tuesday for what we hope is good fun, fellowship, and most importantly, helping you with any testable content you have. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch. Yard by yard, your exam is hard. And Brian, you say?
Keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. You're not alone. Remember, stay connected, whether it's every Tuesday or in other of our other communities. And we'll see you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Bye-bye.